Hi, everyone. John Ripper here. Sorry about the technical difficulty there. I don't think I can top that introduction, so we'll just go with that. Happy to be here talking about Ruckus, specifically Ruckus Analytics. Um, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. This is the Ruckus Analytics dashboard. And for those who aren't familiar, we have Ruckus Analytics available for anyone using our Ruckus Cloud or Ruckus Smart Zone controller. It's an additional overlay that you can add on. It's going to give you a lot more visibility and help you troubleshoot and identify problems in the network. So basically, we've got about 30 minutes here to do a quick overview of the tool. That's going to be enough time to give you a feel for what's possible. And if anyone wants to see more, of course, we can schedule additional time to work with you. There's a lot here to uncover, so I'm gonna jump right into it. What you're seeing is the dashboard right now. This is the, probably the first view you might look at when you come in the morning and try and figure out what's going on in the network. Firstly, you can see in the center of the screen here, there's this big circle diagram. In this case, what you have is a lot of lab systems connected to this instance. This is a Ruckus instance of Ruckus Analytics. And so these circles represent the hierarchy of the network. So you have controllers, and then within the controller, you have zones, or in the case of Ruckus Cloud, it'd be venues. And basically, these are the different areas in your network. And what we're seeing is a color coding telling you where you may have some problems that we've detected. These color codes correspond to priority levels. You can see on the right here, we have these incidents listed. So we call these incidents. And how we create these incidents is Ruckus Analytics is going to take all of the streaming data that's coming from your controller or from the cloud. And all that data gets put into a database. We keep the data for a full year. And then we run machine learning algorithms against that data to detect potential issues in the network. And we categorize those into priorities from P1 through P4, P1 being the worst. And you can see the color coding kind of matches with that. So P1s are red and P3s are orange, et cetera. Now, when we categorize these, we're going to take into account things like how many people were affected, how long were they affected, and what was the nature of the problem. So if you have one of your customers that is going slower than they should, or someone, maybe some students in a school, they're going slow, but they're still working, that's not as high of a priority as people who can't connect at all. So that's how we come up with the priorities. And then we also have categories like connection incidents, performance incidents, and infrastructure incidents. So connections are all about connecting to the network. Performance is going to be about like speed. And then infrastructure is issues with the controller itself or APs, maybe a connection between an AP and controller or something like that. So you can see this overview of what's going on. And on the left here, we have some SLA indicators. You can see there's a connection success, time to connect, et cetera. We'll get into more detail on this on the separate SLA section. You can think of this dashboard as just, it gives you a little bit of an insight into what's happening in the network. And we also have this search bar, and I can search for anything. So I can search for clients, APs, switches, or hierarchy, or which would be network elements. Typically, you'd be looking at clients. To give you an example what a search might look like, in the interest of time here, I've got one pulled up. So I searched for John, and you can see I'm getting quite a few results. Any of the text in any of these columns on your screen is searchable from this search bar. So in this case, I searched for John. I got a hit on a username here. I also got several hits on host name, and I could have searched for something like Samsung, and I would have seen this Samsung phone. So you can search for anything in here, a MAC address, an IP address, whatever you like. And when you pull up one of these search results, you can see on the right you have two little buttons. One is for client details, and one is client troubleshooting. This client troubleshooting, that's what you have here. So I did that search for John. One of the results was this John's Apple Watch. And then here's the client troubleshooting page for this. So if this person was complaining, maybe opened up a help desk ticket, having some issues, you could pull them up very quickly in Ruckus Analytics just by having the username or the host name. If you have the MAC address, that's great. If you have the IP address, you can use that as well. And here you have the client troubleshooting screen. So what you're going to see here on the right side is all of the log messages that are coming in about this client. And you can see that they're color coded, based on whether that is a problem or not, right? So a red is a problem. And then on the left, we break out all that raw text into visual graphs to help you understand what's happening. And we put that on a timeline. So in this case, you can see as we go from left to right, we're going, in this case, from September 16th to September 17th. So this is the timeline. And you have all of your connection events plotted here. So every green circle is where this user connected to an AP. Where you see a orange circle, it was a slow connection, and where you see the red, that is a problem. If I click on one of these red indicators, we actually give you a breakdown of the packet flow to show you what's happening here. So in this case, you can see everything went well. We have the authentication and association. We have our four-way handshake. It's probably a pre-share key network. And then we have this deauthentication. So why is the AP deauthenticating the client? In this case, we can see it's due to the inactivity timeout. So under the reason here, it's due to inactivity. So this being an Apple Watch, it's probably not doing a whole lot. So the session timer expired. It got deauthed. It's going to reconnect. No one probably noticed a problem there. So it's important to know where you see these, red doesn't always mean bad, but it means that something was kicked off the network. And that could be because of a problem, or it could be part of the normal behavior. In this case, it was a timeout, so nothing to worry about. But we get to that point very quickly, whereas if you just had to look through the logs, it'd take you a lot longer to get there. Back to the dashboard. So I'm going to actually move off the dashboard now and go into the main analytics section. So there's a few different types of analytics information we're going to give you. Firstly is the incidents that I spoke about. So on that dashboard, you see some of the top incidents. On this screen, you can really drill in. So I can search in any of these search bars here. If I'm looking for like an EAP issue, I can just type in EAP there. I'll get all my EAP issues. I can also do things like sort by the number of impacted clients. So here you can see I have an incident that's affecting 307 people. In this case, it's DHCP failures. And then so I could go click into that incident, and then you're going to see some help on how to resolve this. So on the right, you'll see a root cause analysis. You'll also see a recommended action. This is going to help you figure out what's going on. You can view the details, and we'll actually give you the full list of the 307 impacted clients for this incident. And like we saw in those previous results, each one of these has a client troubleshooting tab, so you could drill in and troubleshoot with any of those clients if you need to. We've got a number of graphs that help you key in on what's happening. So tell you the reason that this happened, the client manufacturers that are affected, things like whether it was 2, 4, or 5 gigahertz. So there's lots of graphs to help you figure out what's going on. And that's just an example of one particular incident. This is all going to change based on what type of incident it is. So in each case, we're going to give you the visual aids, based on that specific incident to help figure out what's going on. Something new we just did now is we actually have this recommendation section. So what this is, we're looking at the configuration in your network and the performance of your network. And based on what we see, if we think that we might be able to improve your performance by making a configuration change, we're going to give you this recommendation. So in this case, you can see we have a recommendation to improve the Wi-Fi client experience. And the summary here says background scan timer for 2.4. And what this is telling you is we believe that by basically there's a background scan that's happening. And in order for us to build a proper channel plan, if you're using, for example, Channelfly, we need to be able to know what the other APs around this AP are doing. And so in this case, the background scan timer is configured for 3 minutes, and we're recommending 20 seconds, which is the default. By running that scan every 20 seconds, we're going to get a better picture of what the current RF environment looks like. And that's why we think this is going to provide a better experience. And so if you wanted to do this and go ahead and accept our recommendation and give it a shot, you can just click this apply button. It's going to go out to the controller and make that change for you. When we do that, we're going to monitor the statistics, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second here. We're going to monitor that over time. And if we determine that that helped, we're going to let you know. If we determine that that didn't help, we're going to send you a notification and say, hey, that didn't help. Would you like us to go revert that change for you? So it's really easy to use. And then if you find that this type of recommendation doesn't apply in your case, you can always mute these, and you won't see this type of recommendation again. Same goes for incidents. If you see an incident that's happening all the time and it doesn't seem to be a real problem for you, like that one we looked at where it was just a session timer expiring, you can mute those and you won't see them anymore. Next thing I want to show you is this health screen. This is your SLA dashboard for the network. So what you're going to see here at the top is connection metrics. So in this case, we're looking at successful connections, failed connections, and we get a ratio based on that, as well as the time to connect. You can drill in here and see where you have failures, where are the failures happening. In this case, fully half of these are DHCP. That's not uncommon. Sometimes clients will miss that DHCP lease, they'll typically go try and get it again and end up with the connection, but that's not too uncommon. We see some radius failures and EAP failures. This helps you drill in on where you might have problems and what to look at. And then below that, you have these SLAs. On the right, you can set your customized SLA thresholds. So this is going to be where you set things to report on what you believe the network should be doing. So if your metric is that you believe that customers or clients need to connect in only 1 second instead of 2, you can just change that metric to 1 second, and now we'll monitor against that new SLA of 1 second. So you can just change them on the right, you save it, and then we'll update these. And we're going to report based on what your SLAs are that you've set. Next thing I want to show you is config change. This one's really cool. This tool is going to look at all of the changes that have been made. Right now, this is only for wireless. We will be adding this for ICX switches in the future, but for now it's for wireless. So in this case, for a smart zone controller, you have zones, you have WLAN groups, you have AP groups, you have WLANs, you have APs. So those are the types of configuration changes that most typically get made. And you can see they're color coded here. Each of these little colored dots represents a configuration change that someone made. And if you click on one of the dots, it'll highlight it in the table below and give you the specific change that was made. So in this case, it was a change in the directed multicast traffic setting. So how you use this tool is you have these 2 sliding windows for before and after. So for example, there's this group of changes that were made here, between December 5th and 6th. It looks like there's some WLAN changes, there was an AP group change, and there was an AP change. If I take my 2 windows and I move them so that the before window is before those changes and the after window is after, now what the tool is going to do is look at these metrics we're showing you here on the left. So this is going to be all the same kind of metrics we just saw on that health screen. And what we're looking at now is the change in those metrics from before you made those changes to after. So if I make some changes in the network, oftentimes I'm relying on the end users to tell me, whether that helped or didn't help. And that's not always the best way to get that information. Sometimes it's hard to get good reporting back. This is a way to use just the raw data that we're collecting from the system to show you whether that change helped or hurt your network. So in this case, you can see we made this group of changes. If we look at how things changed after we made those changes, you can see that the biggest change here is the time to connect actually increased by 112%, although the client throughput and the AP capacity went up slightly. But this is probably a negative change that we want to go back and see, maybe we need to undo that change, because in this case, it looks like the clients are taking twice as long to connect. But that's, you can see how that's very easy to see that for any of these changes. I could just move these windows around and that'll update. And now you can see it updated. So you can get into more details here if you want to drill in on the connection, performance, infrastructure, et cetera. And you can search through all these config changes. But that's just an example of how you could use this to show you that. Client troubleshooting, we already saw. Occupancy is of interest for a few different use cases. So basically what this does, it lets you define occupancy zones, and you assign APs to those zones, and then you define how many people should be in those areas. And we look at the number of people that are connected to those APs and give you reporting based on that. So if you think only 50 people should be in an area, you can throw those APs into a zone and set that to 50, and we'll report against that. Looks like this one's taking a little longer than normal load. There we go. So here you can see, the metrics on the different occupancy areas. So in this case, you can see the number one is this Jim Leonard zone has 270% of the occupancy that it should have. And down below, you can see how these are configured. So like, for example, there's this Pearl building in Qatar. Qatar has 88% utilization, max capacity set to 100. So there's going to be 88 people in that area. But you can create as many of these as you want, and we'll report against this for you. So you can see, the percentage of occupancy based on what you specify. You can see the total number of visitors. You can also see the dwell time. So for an average person, how long are they staying in that area? Just an easy way to get those metrics. Next thing we have is service validation. Service validation is a way that you can create synthetic tests that run on APs to validate the performance. So basically how this works, I create one of these tests and I can I can run the test on a single AP or against many APs or even all my APs. And I will get results on things like authentication, association, did my DHCP work, is my DNS resolving? I can do ping and traceroute tests, and I can also do speed tests. So in this case, we have 3 APs that were tested. And of those 3 APs, 2 passed and 1 failed. It failed due to error, could be an older version on that AP. If I get into the details, you can see the metrics for each individual AP. So for some of these, it's just pass fail. But when we get into, like, for example, ping, we're going to see the actual ping latency, so 35 milliseconds. When we get to the trace route, we can actually see the trace route path that route took. And we can see the upload and download speed test results. These are testing against the speedtest.net speed server. So you can create as many of these as you want. You can run these tests. You can schedule tests. It just gives you a really nice way of just checking health. And when you're bringing up a new area of coverage, and you want to make sure that all the VLANs are right, the DHCP and DNS are working, routing is working, et cetera. This is just a very fast way of confirming that all the underlying infrastructure is correct. We also have this new video call quality of experience testing. Let me pull up an example report here. So today this supports Zoom. We're using Zoom now, so that's relevant. Basically how this works is you can create a test call within Ruckus Analytics. It will create a real Zoom meeting that you can invite someone to. So you invite yourself and the person who's complaining of poor Zoom performance to a call. You need to spend about 5 minutes on that call to give the Zoom API enough time to build up some data. And then what we do after the call ends is we pull in the statistics from your wireless infrastructure, from all your Ruckus APs and what they're seeing during that call. We also pull the data from Zoom's API, so we can see Zoom's view of how that call went. And then we can correlate that and show you, for the individual users, like what was their performance, and help you figure out whether that problem may have been in your network. We're also going to be bringing this out for Microsoft Teams as well as other video calling solutions. But today we started with Zoom as the first one. So it's there for Zoom now. Moving on, in the interest of time, we also have a complete reporting suite built into Ruckus Analytics. So there's quite a few reports that are canned reports available for you, already built in the tool. There's an overview report that gives you, lots of interesting information on the whole network. So how many controllers, access points, and switches. Network usage you can look at in lots of different ways. So like if I just want to see, for example, just show me APs, I can select only APs here, and then I can see all of my APs plotted against total traffic and client count. You see we have quite the outlier here. This one has seen 1.2 thousand clients, and this is probably in a lab someone's doing some testing on. Next, we have a wireless network report. It's everything you might want to know about your wireless network. So things like traffic distribution, top APs by traffic and by client count, traffic trends, etc. For wired network, very similar. So looking at all your switches, how's the traffic distributed? What are your top switches in terms of traffic or in terms of PoE utilization? Are you having any errors? What are the top switches in terms of port errors? That kind of information. You have some inventory reports as well. So APs, controllers, switches. This is going to show you things like how many APs you have, any alarms. If you have any APs that are rebooting, we'll track that. We'll track the models of APs that you have, the firmware versions. If they are rebooting, why are they rebooting? What kind of alarms are you seeing? Similarly for controllers and for switches, you'll get similar, what firmware are you running in your switches? What models of switches do you have? WLANs is going to give you reporting based on WLANs. So similar to the wireless report, but now we're looking at per SSID, what do we see? And by the way, on any of these pages, you also have a few different filters. So I have a time filter. Right now we're looking at the last 24 hours. We could expand this to 7 days, or we could expand it to any range that you want, going back up to an entire year. So we keep the data for a full year, so you can always go back and look. And then we also have this network element filter. This is pulling from the controller. So all of the controllers and zones that I have created It's going out and talking to the controller and pulling the infrastructure in. So we don't have to build this in Ruckus Analytics. It's going to know all the different zones you have configured. You can pick per zone or per AP group. If I want to look at like only 5 gigahertz, I can do that. I can even drill down to individual SSID or an individual AP. So you can really just look at, whatever part of the network you want to. Of course, it's really all about the clients. So we give you client reporting. If you want to see, what clients are consuming the most traffic, or what applications clients are using. What are your top applications? Airtime utilization is a really good one to look at the wireless health of your network. So if you have APs with really high airtime utilization, like over 50% or so, then you might need to look at why that's the case. Could be something like interference with other APs, or maybe even non-Wi-Fi interference. So that'll give you a good indicator on the RF health. And then we have some details reports, AP details, client details, and switch details. These are going to be pulled up by putting in the MAC of the individual element. Or for example, if I go back to, let me go back to my clients report, and you can see if I click on my top client, that'll actually launch me into the client details report for that client. So I could get there either from a different report, or I could just put the MAC address of that client in. By the way, this client details report also shows up on, where is it? This page. So when I do that search, I had those 2 buttons for all these clients. One was the client troubleshooting page, which you've seen already, and the other one is this client details report. So you can pull that up just from a search. And this will give you information on how much traffic that client's using, what has their signal strength trend looked like over time. Are they generally getting a pretty good signal? This one's a little bit iffy. Neg 70 is good. It's not super great, but they're probably doing just fine. Signal noise ratio 30 dB, that no problems there. And then the last couple of reports we have, there's a comparison report. So of those other reports that you've seen, we can apply some filters and create a comparison between, say, 2 different zones or 2 different controllers. And we also have a PCI report. If you have to do any PCI for credit card information, you can create one of these PCI reports. It walks you through, you have to answer some checklist information that auditors will be looking at. And then it also looks at all of the configuration for your wireless network. So you tell this report which SSIDs you want to include, and then you have to answer all of the questionnaire, and then it'll produce one of these PCI reports. So lots of reporting built in. If you would like to have a report that's not one of those pre-built reports, we have this thing called Data Explorer that lets you build custom reports and look at all kind of statistics that the environment is reporting. So this works in what are called data cubes. So you can look at one of these data cubes, and for example, there's one called client sessions, and you can see there's all these different metrics now that I can pull up. So I might just want to look at like the client MAC, and that shows me for each MAC how much traffic have they used over the time filter, which currently is the latest day. If I want to see, maybe I want to see which SSIDs these clients connected to, I could also drag SSID over. And now it's going to show me for each client MAC, which SSID did they connect to. So I'm not sure if we'll have one with 2 here. Maybe not. But if we did, we would see that. If I change the order of these, it'll just change the way that the data is displayed. So now it's going to show me a list of all my SSIDs, and for each one, which clients have connected. Then if I want to filter that, I can drag another one of these elements into the filter row, and now I can filter. Maybe I only want to see 5 gigahertz, so I can filter that, and now the data is updated. I might want to see it as a bar chart instead of a table, and so I can change the visualization. There's lots of different types of graphs you can create. And then once I've gotten the visualization I'm looking for that shows me the data, I can then add that to a custom dashboard. And I can create multiple of those custom dashboards. So as an example, here is, get back out of there, sorry. Here's an example of a custom dashboard that was put together that shows you how you can take multiple of those little widgets that you can create in that Data Explorer, and you can combine multiples of those widgets. And when you do that, you can actually filter between them as well. So for example, if I go into one of these widgets and I highlight this AP called Office AP, and I select it, now it's going to update every other widget on the page to be selected for just that AP. You can see it adds it in the filter up here. You could also create your own filters just by adding this here. So you can create custom dashboards, but they're not static. You can filter them and massage the data even after it's in the dashboard. So I hope that was a good overview for you guys. And there's a lot here. I think that's really the highlights. Oh, I do need to cover also, there is this Melissa tool. So this is a natural language processor that you can talk to the tool. So like, for example, what are the top applications? I can just interact with this in using, English chat, and it's going to process that and come back and give me an answer. I can also do things like if I wanted to open a support case. And there you can see my answer for top applications. Number one is Wistia.com. That's interesting. I can also ask to open a support case. You can see I'm being prompted. Would you like me to open a case? I'll say yes. And now it's going to walk me through providing the details that are needed, and it'll actually create the case in this tool. So, so lots of ways you can interact with Ruckus Analytics. Just the one final thing, you can create, you can have as many users as you want within your organization. You can also invite third-party users. So if you need to invite, a reseller or a consultant to the tool to be able to help you troubleshoot, you can certainly do that. You can also create resource groups. If I want to invite someone to use the tool, but I only want to show them maybe the APs in one school, for example, then I can create a resource group and use it for that. And I can also create these webhooks, which is a way of integrating with external systems. So for example, if I want to have Ruckus Analytics create a ticket in your ticketing system when an incident is detected, that's what this would be for. So you would create one of these webhooks, and then you would create, tell it which priority incidents you want. If you want to narrow that by a resource group, you can, and then you create one of those webhook URLs, which can then push that information into another system. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to cover. I think we wanted to open it up for questions if anyone has questions.
Thank you, John. And just a reminder for everyone, Ruckus has a promotion for Ruckus Analytics going on, so feel free to reach out to us for maybe a one-on-one demo and more information about that. But yeah, if you have any questions, post those in the chat and we'll be happy to answer those. All right, John, looks like you did a really good job. No questions at all. So thank you, everyone, and have a really nice day.
Thanks, everyone.